Thank you, Dr. Tan, and I am grateful to partake in this journey toward this conference goal. And so much of what we endeavor to do here at Fuller Seminary and what I have tried to do as an artist collide today in a certain manner. And as my response, I'm going to show an object. And this is from early 20th century Japan. Let's see if I can open the box. It is a teaware that is used in tea ceremony of Japan, but it has been dropped, shattered really, but it has been mended by kintsugi masters. Kintsugi is literally translated gold mending or mending with gold. And this tradition of mending that the Japanese have refined really speak to the context of what Dr. Tan was speaking of, because it deals with trauma of the past, the broken, and yet how we might go forward into the future, knowing the fissures of fragmentation, polarization, and woundings are still with us. And we can't ignore them because they are part of our lives, and they are just like Jesus' wounds, which appear after his resurrection, to be still with him. That Thomas is invited to even touch the wounds, even though he doesn't, because he sees in Christ's appearance, post-resurrection appearance, this restored reality, yes, but also something more. See, a kintsugi master takes a bowl like this, mends it with gold, and this bowl is more valuable than the original. It is not just restored and fixed with crazy glue. That's how we would do it, right? To hide the flaws and to say that, well, it's as good as new. Well, it might be useful and good, but it's not new if you do that. But the Japanese artisans figured out a way to move beyond the fixing and even, I would say, restoration. They figured out a way to move into new creation, which is the paradigm that we have as Fuller Seminary, as people of God, to go back to the resurrected reality, our Emeritus road journey, and realize that there is so much more to the brokenness of the world and reality that we struggle with daily. And as we struggle with what happened yesterday in California, as we deal with so much of the polarization and divisiveness in this culture, evidenced by the day before that, as we come to face in our own country the 20th anniversary of Columbine High School, which is incredible to me, that the young lives that were shot down on that day would have been in their 30s, late 30s today. And as we lament about these experiences, I wanted to share with you, as part of my kintsugi offering, another perspective, which is the little dash that Dr. Tan had in the title, Christian National. And she has a dash in there. And I paid attention to this dash because it often gets edited out. which happened this morning because the slide to introduce her took out the dash. Now, I'm not blaming them for doing that, and sometimes in design of whatever you're presenting, you make decisions, and these are editing decisions. That happens all the time. But in order to move from restoration into new creation, we have to pay attention to the dash. And I'm gonna prove this to you by making a point from an American poet, Emily Dickinson. She, thank you. She wrote a poem, many poems, many with dashes and hyphens. And when she sent a manuscript to a Boston editor, only one time in her life where she was given access to the publishers, this editor offered to publish her poems, but she also offered to help her turn her half rhymes into full rhymes, and that the manuscript came back with all the dashes removed because they were unnecessary. She never published again. She wrote a poem called Hummingbird. She really titled her poems, but this one she did at the end of the poem. But she titled it Humming Dash Bird. How appropriate, right? Because hummingbirds dashes in between. They do not pause only for a second. This ephemeral emanation that is out in nature that she saw as this transcendent reality. But it can be only captured in this little dash that the editors will remove. I just gave a keynote at Baylor University's conference on creation, stewarding creation. And I'm just going to read you a paragraph from this. This is on my website on Emily Dickinson. Actually, I spoke on her and Rachel Carson and the new creation. Here's what I wrote. Hyphens and dashes are liminal, floating about in the structures of her poem, hovering in between heaven and earth, between spirit and the material, and I might add, between cultures. Hyphens are to poetic expression what poets are to society, a quiet and a surprising intrusion, even an agitating pause, tempting society to edit them out for sake of clarity. Yet fundamentally, it is the most needed pause, a sanity in a chaotic dance of life. Such was the life of Emily Dickinson. She was to become, her own words, the hyphen of the sea, of modernism. She spoke into and even created within a liminal space of her own, in between a forced split between the rational and the intuitive, between the religious and understanding of nature. The dash and hyphens divide and connect the medieval world and our own liquid modernity. She stood outside of the conventional means of success and entered our consciousness without needing to resort to the path of acceptance. So back to Kintsugi and Emily's dashes. This most needed pause in between the restoration of our lives, the pulverized realities that we live in, what I call our ground zero realities. And moving into this new creation is a hard and difficult journey. And all of us are on that journey somehow, whether we are conscious of that or not. But it is the artisans who come to us with a language that we need to journey there. And when Emily Dickinson was writing, she couldn't rhyme fully because she was seeing a world that is broken. In her very own town of Amherst, there were young men going to civil war and coming back in caskets with their limbs torn off. this is not a world, she reckoned, that you can rhyme fully in. The most authentic and honest struggle of a poet or any artist or any Christian is to recognize that brokenness is there in front of us, in our main streets, parading in front of us. And so the honest response is to recognize that and to not try to make it disappear or to fix it, but to behold it. Pour the divine gold in between the fissures of our brokenness, and let that light shine through even the contention between cultures, the competition that often leads to division. And the Japanese have learned to do this, and I can tell you more about some of the intuitive steps that happen, especially with the ROT that is connected to the Eucharist. But I won't do that today. I will just conclude with one thought. To Emily Dickinson, these dashes played another role. When you look at them visually, her poems, they are literally stitching the divisions back together. They are like sutures of a surgeon operating on these young bodies, connecting, reconnecting, providing healing, and ultimately hope for the new creation. Thank you.
Mi